Greetings, brave souls. Do you dare to discover the dark unknown? I am your haunted host, Phantom Spectres, and you've stumbled upon the Phantom Files, where shadows speak and legends awaken. Here I unravel the darkest secrets and mysteries of the macabre, taking a page from my ancient library, covering topics that will haunt your dreams and mysteries that will keep you up at night. Join me in the shadows and let's embrace and dive into the darkness together with the Phantom Files. Tonight, we explore one of the most chilling and enduring legends of modern true crime, our tale that drenched in darkness, slipping through the cracks of police files, haunting grieving families, and spreading fear across the country. This is the story of the Smiley Face Killers. Sit tight. By the end of this story, you'll never look at a smiley face the same way again. It started quietly. Young men, mostly college students, would vanish after nights out with friends. Some had been drinking, some hadn't. Some had argued with friends, some had left without explanation. But all of them vanished into the night, their absence a haunting mystery that spread through campus rumor mills, fueled by questions too uncomfortable to ask out loud. Days, sometimes weeks later, these young men would reappear. Though not alive, their bodies floating in rivers, lakes, or ponds, often far from where they were last seen. For each family, the disappearance was a private horror, the realization of a fear that no one should have to endure. But police were quick to provide an answer: accidental drowning. Young men out for a night, likely disoriented, stumbling into water they couldn't escape. It seemed to make sense, at first. Grieving parents clung to the story, tried to make peace with the idea that maybe their sons had made one reckless mistake that cost them everything. But for a few families, and for two retired New York City detectives, the pieces didn't fit. They believed something, or perhaps someone, was responsible. Detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, veterans of the NYPD, took a look at these cases, and they couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was at play. To them, these drownings were not accidents at all, but something staged. An intricate web stretched across states and years, claiming young men in cities scattered across the country, only to leave their bodies in water, marked by one detail that haunted the detectives more than anything else: a symbol. Near the sites where the bodies were discovered, Gannon and Duarte noticed a crude smiley face painted in graffiti. Sometimes small, sometimes large, but always there, smiling with eerie permanence, as if to say, "I was here. I'm watching." To the detectives, these faces were anything but coincidence. As Gannon and Duarte sifted through the cases, the similarities piled up, too perfect and too eerie to ignore. The victims were almost always young men, intelligent, athletic, with lives ahead of them, last seen in bars or walking home alone after a night out. They were men who didn't fit the profile, or typical drowning victims. And then there were the bruises. Many of the bodies showed marks and bruising on their arms, on their necks, that hinted at something far darker than a simple drowning. Some showed traces of GHB, a substance known to incapacitate, to render a victim defenseless. Yet these men hadn't been recreational users. To the detectives, it looked like someone had drugged them, hurt them, before leaving them in the water. Even stranger, some autopsies suggested that the bodies had not been in the water as long as the victims had been missing. It was as if the men had been kept somewhere, hidden for days or even weeks before they were disposed of in a river or lake. This made it seem like a tragedy, nothing more than an accident. And in nearly every case, that smiley face lingered somewhere nearby, scrawled on a bridge, a concrete wall, a riverbank. It was always just out of sight but close enough to taunt anyone who took notice. As Gannon and Duarte connected the dots, they began to develop a theory that sent shivers through everyone who heard it. They believed that these weren't just random murders committed by a lone killer, but the work of a group, an organized network operating across state lines. The Smiley Face Killers, they called them, a name that quickly spread through news headlines and true crime forums alike. It was a dark, haunting title for an even darker theory: a hidden web of predators, united by some twisted agreement, each one carrying out the same sick ritual, preying on the lives of the vulnerable. The internet took this theory and ran with it. Amateur detectives on forums and social media began to map out the locations, finding connections and coincidences that seemed to defy rational explanation. The cases stretched from the East Coast to the Midwest, from small towns to big cities, and each one seemed to follow the same unsettling pattern. Some claimed the Smiley Face Killers were part of a cult, bound by an ancient ritual that required sacrifices. They said the killers worked in chapters, each group selecting its target, each one leaving the same mocking mark behind. Others suggested an even more elaborate setup, a secret network on the dark web, encrypted and invisible to all but those who knew the way in, a place where they shared information on potential targets, traded details on locations, and planned their next moves. To them, the smiley face was not just a signature, but a symbol, a message to each other that said, "The hunt continues." It was terrifying, unbelievable. And yet, with every new case, it became harder to dismiss. Every now and then, a survivor would emerge, someone who had come face to face with something, or someone, and escaped just in time. One young man from Milwaukee told of a night out by the river when he felt a sharp sting in his arm. Turning, he'd seen a figure moving away, slipping into the dark of night. He later found a small puncture wound, as if he'd been injected with something. In Boston, another man remembered a stranger who had offered him a drink and a ride home, staring at him with a look that felt wrong, almost predatory. The man declined, feeling a chill settle over him, and walked away. Days later, a body was found in the river, not far from where he'd escaped. Their stories were fragments, pieces of a puzzle that hinted at a larger, more organized scheme. But without hard evidence, they remained unsettling anecdotes, whispers of something no one could pin down. To this day, no one knows if the Smiley Face Killers are real or an elaborate urban legend. Police departments across the country continue to call these drownings tragic accidents, coincidences fueled by alcohol and missteps in the dark. They say that the smiley faces are just graffiti, random tags that mean nothing in the grand scheme of things. They believed it was nothing more than sheer coincidence. But families of the victims, and those who have survived encounters, aren't so convinced. They remember the odd details, the strange bruises, the traces of drugs that didn't belong, the hazy, fleeting memories of abduction and danger. They remember the unnatural calm of the authorities and the official explanations that left them with more questions than answers. And they remember the smiley faces, blank eyes and wide grins staring back from the shadows, reminders that someone was watching, laughing, daring the world to figure it out. Gannon and Duarte retired without finding the answers they'd sought. They left behind files filled with photos, maps, autopsy reports, and theories they could never prove. But they are still haunted by what they uncovered, haunted by the idea that they were only scratching the surface of something too vast and too hidden to be revealed. A secret that runs through cities, down rivers, and across every lonely place where young men disappear into the night. The mystery of the Smiley Face Killers endures. And as long as rivers continue to carry bodies downstream, as long as that symbol keeps appearing near the places where life has been lost, the question will remain: is it a story we tell ourselves to make sense of tragedy, or is there something far darker lurking out there, hunting in the night, leaving only a smile behind as it slips back into the shadows? This unsettling phenomenon has woven its way into American culture, feeding a collective fear that has grown in the age of online communities and urban legends. True crime forums, YouTube documentaries, and late-night podcasts all dissect the Smiley Face Killers theory, creating an atmosphere where fascination blends with dread. Theories sprout like wildfire, fueled by the idea that beneath our society's ordered surface, a hidden network of hunters might operate unnoticed. Each new disappearance that fits the profile fans the flames, reinforcing a cultural obsession with hidden horrors and unseen threats, and the sense that someone, or something, is out there, beyond reach and accountability. Among the theories that have flourished, Two particularly strange ones have captured the imaginations of internet sleuths. The first posits that the killers are part of a highly sophisticated ring that communicates through cryptic symbols, smiley faces, and coded language. Some believe they leave subtle clues online, in hidden forums or encrypted sites on the dark web, taunting investigators while sharing tips and targets. According to this theory, each drowning isn't just an isolated crime. It's a carefully orchestrated event planned by a network, one step in a coordinated ritual performed by people who see themselves as members of an elite society of hunters. Another theory, even more surreal, suggests a supernatural element. Some online communities believe the smiley faces are portals or markers that signify areas where the boundary between worlds is thin. These theorists claim that the victims didn't just drown. They were lured to their deaths by forces beyond human understanding, perhaps to fulfill some ancient ritual or pact. This theory has given rise to the idea that the Smiley Face Killers might not be human at all but rather entities, spirits, or beings that dwell in the dark and mark their territory with a smile, a territorial claim left as a chilling reminder of their control. With every new case, the fascination with the Smiley Face Killers grows, merging horror with myth and conspiracy. Whether it's an urban legend or something far more real, the story has taken root in America's psyche, a dark mystery that speaks to our deepest fears and our endless curiosity. For now, the truth remains elusive, hidden somewhere beyond the light, just out of reach, waiting patiently in the depths. The mystery of the Smiley Face Killers endures. And as long as rivers continue to carry bodies downstream, as long as that symbol keeps appearing near places where life has been lost, the question will remain. Is it a story we tell ourselves to make sense of tragedy, or is there something far darker lurking out there, hunting in the night, leaving only a smile behind as it slips back into the shadows? In recent years, the whispers have only grown louder, particularly after a string of disappearances that, eerily enough, seem to fit the same profile. Just last summer, a young man named Liam was celebrating his graduation in Chicago, surrounded by friends along the bright lights of the riverfront. At some point in the evening, he slipped away, alone, stepping into the dark for fresh air. He was never seen alive again. His body surfaced days later, miles downstream, with no clear cause of death. Near the water's edge where his body was found, investigators reported a familiar marking, a spray-painted smiley face on a concrete wall, half worn by time but unmistakable. Was it left there long before, or was it waiting there for him all along? This most recent case reignited discussions across online communities. Theories and speculations multiplied as armchair detectives pored over the details. Some argue the smiley face was a mere coincidence, that Liam's death was simply a tragic accident like so many others. Yet others are convinced it's another chapter in a grim, ongoing tale, a sign that the Smiley Face Killers remain at large. But why? If there's a message, a motive, it remains hidden in the depths, as if this story itself is meant to haunt us without resolution. Each new disappearance leaves only fragments, pieces of a puzzle that don't quite fit, like something deliberately left unfinished. And perhaps that's the most unsettling part of all, that there's no answer waiting at the end. Only the unshakable feeling that, somewhere out there, something or someone watches, lying in wait beyond the light, its true purpose yet to be revealed. Continuing to fuel the mystery, left unresolved and awaiting discovery. This has been the Phantom Files, and until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant and always question what is lurking in the shadows.